So at the top of this paper, this is going to be called number 13. This is using the distance formula, what we did yesterday, to calculate perimeter. So for this, make sure you put your name on it. We put on here, or I put on here that the perimeter, you should know this by now. You've been doing perimeter since elementary school. Perimeter is, the perimeter of a polygon is the distance around the entire shape. So what you're going to do is add up all the sides. So back in elementary school, you'd be given the sides and you had to figure out the perimeter. Now we're going to have to find the length of each side first, and then we're going to do the same thing, add up the sides. You can find the length of a shape using two different things. The distance formula, which is what we talked about yesterday. You could also use the Pythagorean theorem. This might ring a bell to you, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, but that only works if it is a right triangle. So if it's not a right triangle, you can't use that. So this is just like, if you want to, if you remember that, you can use that. But if you're not sure, you can always use the distance formula for whatever shape it is. So the first thing that we're going to do is graph our shape. It says find the perimeter of E, F, G, H, round to the nearest tenth if necessary. So we're going to plot our points. So we're going to graph our quadrilateral. So starting at 0, 0, I'm going to plot point E. Point E is at -2, 6. So I'm going to the left 2, and then I'm going to go up 6. So we're going to plot all these points and make a shape. So -2, 6, and I'm going to call it point E. Watch point. F is at 4, 3. So starting back at the origin, which is 0, 0, I'm going to the right 4, and I'm going to go up 3. This is point F. G is at 4, -1. So starting at 0, 0, I'm going to the right, and then I'm going to go down 1. G. And then the last point is point H, which is -4, -2, and I'm going to put an H next to that. So once I have my 4 points, it looks a little Akko Taco. It's a little strange, but that's our shape. We're going to connect them to make a shape. Yeah. Yes. G. This is E, F, G, and H. And then this problem specifically, because this is like the notes, breaks it down into different steps. You would have to know to do each of these. So the first thing we're going to do is find the total length of segment EF. So I'm talking about this segment right here. I need to find the length of that. Since it's not a perfectly horizontal or vertical line, I have to use the distance formula because it is slightly slanted. So I'm going to use my coordinate points E and F, and they're listed here, so I don't have to really use my picture. E is -2, 6. F is 4, 3. And then we're going to use this distance formula that we talked about yesterday. It's also on that poster I made for you, where we're taking our X's, we're going to subtract them. We're going to square it, and then we're going to add the difference from the Y's with that being squared. So you're going to need a calculator. If you don't have a regular calculator, you're going to want a regular calculator because you need to know where your square root button is, the power of 2 button is on your calculator. When you're at home, you can use your phone. Just use the calculator in class so that way you're comfortable with the buttons. So I'm going to label this X1, Y1, X2, Y2, and I'm going to plug it into my formula. So for the first one, I'm going to show every single step. For the next one, I'll show you where you can like condense steps. So I have my square root in the first set of parentheses. I'm going to take my X's and subtract them. In the second set of the parentheses, I'm technically taking the Y's and subtracting them. So I just like set up my little bracket. So if I take my X's, I'm taking X2 and I'm minusing X1. So in parentheses, I'm going to have 4 minus -2. If I'm subtracting a negative, do I bring down a minus sign or a plus sign? A plus. Because when you do 4 minus -2, when you're adding a negative, it really turns into a plus sign. And if you're not sure about it, you could literally type it into your calculator. If you take 4 and you minus -2, it's going to tell you that it's adding. Okay, so just an FYI. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the y's. I'm taking 3 and I'm minusing 6. So 4 plus 2 is 6. Because PEMDAS for life, we're going to simplify our parentheses. I have 6 to the power of 2 plus 3 minus 6 is -3. And now I'm going to do my exponents and then add it. So 6 squared, if you don't know where your button is for your exponent, you can press x squared right here and it'll automatically do it. Or you could do 6 times 6. So if I do 6 and I press this button, it multiplies it by itself. So that makes 36. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I have -3. -3 times -3. I'm just going to press that button. Gives me 9. So I have 36 plus 9. So I get 45. Then I'm taking the square root of 45. So if I add them together, I have the square root of 45. And this is why you need your calculator, because you can't do this in your brain. Could you estimate it? Yeah, but like you guys are not mathematicians. We're learning. So we're going to press shift and then square roots. So it's saying it's around 6.70. So I'm just going to say 6.7. So that is the length to the first side. Okay. So now question 3 says find the length of FG. So I can do the same thing. I'm trying to find this side. FG, you could use the distance formula. But since it's perfectly vertical, it's going straight up, straight down. If it was going side to side perfectly, not slanted, you do not have to use the distance formula. You can cheat the system. You can just count the units. So if I look at F to G, it's perfectly going up and down. It's not slanted. So what is this length if I literally just count them? 5, 4, 4. So you're counting the squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's a total of 4 squares in length. So I'm going to cheat the system. I'm just going to say this is equal to 4, because if you use the distance formula, you're going to get the same thing. Don't waste your time. Okay, so that's the length of FG. So we got 2 sides now. The next one says find the length of GH. So I'm talking about this bottom piece from G to H. Since it's not perfectly side to side or vertical, it is slanted. I'm going to have to use the distance formula. So I am going to write G and H. I'm going to use the original coordinate points they gave me. G was 4, -1. H is -4, -2. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my x's, subtract it, square it, take the y's, subtract it, square it, add it together, square root it. And this is where I'll show you can like combine steps if you use a calculator. So x1, y1, x2, y2. I'll write the first step out just so that way you have your formula set up properly. So I'm doing x2, which is -4. And I'm subtracting 4 from the front. Then I'm doing my y's, taking the second y, which is -2, and I'm subtracting the first y. So if I have -2 and I'm minusing -1, I'm really adding them because the minus and the negative become that plus sign. So I have -2 plus 1 because I'm subtracting a -1. And now this is where I'm going to show you in your calculator. You can kind of do it in one step. Well, technically you can save yourself a step. In your calculator, if I do -4 minus 4, I type this in, make 4 negative. I'm minusing 4 minus 4. That gives me -8 when I subtract them. Since I'm taking it to the power of 2, I'm just going to plug it into my calculator right there. I have -8. I'm squaring -8. That's giving me positive 64 because -8 times -8 gives me 64. So I can just save myself a step right there and just say 64 plus, and I'm going to do the same thing for the y's. I'm taking -2. I'm adding 1. That gives me -1. Now I'm going to square it because it's -1 times -1. -1 times -1 gives me +1. So I'm going to add 1. So if I add them together, I get 65. And then I'm going to estimate my square root of 65. So if I take 65, shift square root, I get 8.06. So if I round to the nearest tenths, what is that? 8.1. So that's my third side. Now take a minute, try to set up the last side from E to H. Yeah. We're going to skip on the digits. Yeah. Or no, the last one. Actually, I'm going to let you choose, but number 6. This is exactly this. We have yeah, I think you're actually this one is 64. The 64 is 8. So you can probably send this 68. So now you're gonna add up all the side lines. Yeah, that's my question. You add the final answer. So 6.74 to 2.1. Oh, I mean, okay. Just try. Try. All what you do is try. That's a great question. Yeah. So the quarter points you should be using, -2, 6, -4, -2. You're taking your x's, you're subtracting them. You're taking your y's, you're subtracting them. You're done. Come on. So you're gonna find the length of G's H's. They're gonna be G's. And then you do H then. And you do G. So you actually save yourself the stuff because it's only 35, so you don't have 4 sides at all. So if you're trying to see if you plug this in correctly, you're taking x and you're subtracting x. So I have -4 and I'm minusing -2. So that really makes +2 squared. I'm adding the y's subtracted. So I'm doing -2 minus 6 squared. Now I'm simplifying the parentheses. -4 plus 2, you can do it in a calculator. -4. I'm adding 2. And now I'm going to square it because I'm saving myself some steps. So -2 to the second power is +4 because -2 times -2 is going to bring down a positive. I have -2 and I'm subtracting 6. That gives me -8. I'm taking it to the power of 2. That's giving me 64. It should always bring down a positive number. So I'm adding 64. When I take 64 and I add 4, I get 68. And then I'm taking the square root of 68 to estimate my decimal. So if I square root it, I get 8.24. So I'm going to keep it as 8.2. So I have my 4 sides to my picture. And now the whole point of this is to find the perimeter. So it says add all 4 side lengths to find the perimeter. I have the original that I found, which was 6.7. This one was 4. This one was 8.1. This one's 8.2. So I'm going to add them all up to find the perimeter of the actual shape. And that makes a total of 7, 8, 9, 10, 27. I think 27 units. And I just put units. If it said like meters or centimeters or something, that's what you put, whatever. So it's 27 in total. The whole point of this is to find the perimeter. You're adding up the sides. So on the back, there's 2 questions. I want you to scribble out number 3. You can skip it. Number 2, you're finding the distance from each segment, finding the distance, and then you're adding them up. So you got to find your original 40 points first. Yeah. 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 If you want to do the third one, you can get extra credit if you want. Because some of y'all, most of y'all need extra credit in your math lives. Yeah, hold on.